Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents No More Narcissists, How to Stop Choosing Self-Absorbed Men and Find the Love You Deserve, by Candace Love, Ph.D., narrated by Niemi. Publisher's note. This publication is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering psychological, financial, legal, or other professional services. If expert assistance or counseling is needed, the services of a competent professional should be sought. Introduction. If you are one of the many women who find yourself in one toxic, destructive relationship after another and can't understand why your relationships implode, the problem may be that you are picking one self-absorbed, self-serving narcissistic partner after another. What's worse is that you don't even realize you're doing it. Well, I have good news for you. You can learn to stop repeating this destructive relationship pattern. As a clinical psychologist, I have helped many women like you break this pattern. This book is for you and the many women like you who struggle with this issue. One such woman is Linda. See if her story sounds familiar. Linda's story. Sitting alone at the bar of a trendy restaurant, Linda squeezed the stem of her wine glass tightly. Her stomach had that scooped-out feeling of loss, and she could feel the weight of sadness building up in her throat. Stop. Not yet. I don't want to start crying now. She checked the time on her smartphone. Again. Nancy was always late. Nancy had been her closest friend since childhood, and Linda really needed to talk to her. Linda thought back to the time when she and Nancy had their first hot yoga class a few years earlier, and she had told Nancy about her latest boyfriend, Mark. Things seemed so hopeful then, and Linda began to daydream, remembering how happy she had felt in the beginning of her relationship with Mark. While Linda daydreamed, Nancy finally arrived. Ignoring the attempts of the hostess to seat her, Nancy headed directly for Linda at the bar. They hugged, and as they walked from the bar to a table, Nancy said how sorry she was to hear about Linda's breakup. Once they sat down, Linda took a breath and said quietly, "I can't believe it happened again. I really thought he was different. How can this be happening to me? What did I miss?" Linda proceeded to unload the painful details, finally coming clean as to just how bad things had gotten between her and Mark. He had become increasingly irritable, starting fights over the littlest things. His insults were filled with contempt as he became more demanding and critical of her. She couldn't do anything right. Then, when she found out that he had gone out with a woman from his office, she felt sure he had slept with her. Linda remembered how he had followed the woman around like a puppy, flirting with her at the Christmas party. He denied it, of course, and accused Linda of being a typical jealous woman. As she spoke, Linda fought to keep her thoughts rational, but felt them sinking into the familiar whirlpool of shame. I'm an idiot. Something is really wrong with me. I keep screwing up. I should have known better. This is so embarrassing. Oh my God, I'm hopeless. I should just give up trying to find someone. I'm going to be alone the rest of my life. Nancy looked at the small mound of shredded paper napkin bits that Linda had created while she talked. "Linda," Nancy said, taking her hand, "I didn't know it was this bad. You know what I went through a couple years ago with David. I wish you had told me. You didn't have to go through this alone." Linda looked up, her eyes misty with the tears she had been trying to hold back. I couldn't even say it to myself. I felt so ashamed when I realized I was in yet another loser relationship. I didn't want to admit it, Linda murmured. Nancy gave her hand a squeeze. Maybe you can relate to Linda. Maybe you too have been through countless relationships that start out looking and feeling so right, but inevitably turn bitter with disappointment. You are not alone if you find you continue to attract and be attracted to narcissistic men. I'll explain exactly what a narcissist is in Chapter 2. The fact is, many women repeat the same self-destructive patterns in their relationships. If you are one of the unlucky ones who do, you probably feel frustrated and angry with yourself for not seeing the truth of the relationship sooner, or for not leaving sooner. You may be filled with tremendous shame that you allowed yourself to be fooled and or mistreated. You may feel guilty that you subjected others, such as your children or a dependent parent, to him. You may feel like you wasted precious time in another dead-end relationship. Or perhaps because you were hoping to marry and start a family before your childbearing years were over, or because your marriage of many years ended, you may feel you wasted the best years of your life with this man. Repeating these patterns leaves you feeling deeply wounded and flawed. Your self-confidence is severely shaken and your self-esteem seriously eroded. You are filled with shame that you, yet again, failed in a relationship. These types of soul-shattering relationships shake you to the core. You believe you cannot trust your judgment. Going forward, you may decide to avoid relationships altogether, though you've always hoped to share your life with someone. What is the problem? The problem is that narcissistic partners can initially seem so appealing that it can be hard for those involved with them to break away. These men can be charming and caring in the beginning. They seem to be on top of their game and have it all, confident and with a magnetic attractiveness. They make you feel special because they chose you. You happily and easily slip into their life. You can't believe how lucky you are. Now you won't be alone the rest of your life. You're going to have a golden relationship. But then it changes, as it always does and will. Your Prince Charming begins critiquing every little thing you do, from how you dress and wear your hair to how you talk, from your intellect to your friends and family. On and on the list goes. You begin to get nervous. What's happening? Fear sets in as you realize you may lose him because you aren't measuring up to his expectations, and then self-doubt. How could you have thought you could hold on to him? He is so great and you are, well, you. And you know you are not that special. The relationship dissolves in front of you. Either he drops you out of the blue or you end it because you have no other choice. You lick your wounds, your girlfriends and family tell you they never liked him anyway, and in time you meet another man. And it starts over again. You don't intend to, but you find yourself in another bad relationship. Unwittingly, you keep picking a man who can't give you the love you desire. Because of the unfortunate psychology of narcissists, they are actually unable to love another person in a way that is deep, reciprocal, mutually respectful, and satisfying. Narcissistic men are self-absorbed and can never really love or appreciate you. They only love and appreciate what you do for them, the way you look, your status, or your service to them. Focused solely on fulfilling their own needs, narcissistic men are unable to perceive things from another person's perspective or to relate to a partner with kindness, respect, and sensitivity. To keep yourself from entering into these unhealthy relationships, you have to stop focusing on other people's wants and needs and begin focusing on you. What is it about you that causes you to be attracted to these men and to stay way too long in hurtful, destructive relationships? It's not the man who has to change. It's you. You do it by learning about the psychological patterns you developed in childhood as a result of your unmet childhood needs, such as nurturance, empathy, love, security, and safety. These unmet needs develop into unhealthy patterns of behavior that become an unconscious prism through which you view and respond to the world around you. They tend to persist throughout your life, causing you to look in the wrong places or to the wrong people to fulfill them. They most certainly impact your dating choices unless you consciously identify and change them. I want to help you change. I wrote this book because I have a passion, no, a mission, to help smart women like you who keep finding themselves yet again with another jerk, a narcissist to be precise. I want to help you learn how to stop repeating those destructive relationships. I feel a lot of empathy for women like you because I, too, was a smart woman, heck, a clinical psychologist, for God's sake, who kept repeating narcissistic relationships. I finally had to accept that I was the common denominator in these unhealthy and oftentimes damaging relationships. I went through the self-blame and shame of having been dead wrong about someone who seemed like a great guy in the beginning, at least to me. Friends, of course, saw things otherwise, but I didn't listen to them. Instead, I would say to myself the classic phrase, "They don't know him like I do." Yeah, right. Infamous last words. Then the relationship inevitably came back to bite me in the derriere. Who knew that by disagreeing or displeasing a narcissist, he would morph from Prince Charming into a cold, detached Komodo dragon intent on destroying me? It left me feeling like I'd been the victim of a drive-by shooting. Even though I was the one who ended these relationships, I still felt shocked and confused. Then I would interrogate myself. What just happened? What did I miss? How could I have missed it? What's wrong with me? I am an idiot. I was left in a wake of trauma, flailing in a sea of doubt and self-recrimination as the supposed man of my dreams raced away in a speedboat. Classic, sleek, and expensive, of course, never looking back. I have to admit, I have always been attracted to narcissists. What's not to be attracted to? They are usually funny, witty, intelligent guys with larger-than-life personalities who are seemingly confident, often successful, and in control. And initially, they make me feel safe and special. But the pattern is always the same. What I took to be ardent love was actually the need to control me, and in a couple cases when I displeased them, disagreed with them, or just offered up my own voice, God forbid, they became vindictive and very scary. But my illusions and need to hold on to the fantasy of what I wanted them to be was powerful. I remember declaring to one such scary narcissist after dating for only a few months, "This is the healthiest relationship I have ever been in." Can you imagine? Boy, did I ever have to eat those words, and with a helping of habanero peppers. So my promise to you is that if you follow the wisdom offered in this book, wisdom gained from my own painful experiences as well as those of countless women I have worked with, you can break this pattern once and for all. The theoretical basis for the teachings in this book is schema therapy, developed by renowned American psychologist Jeffrey Young. Schema therapy is a powerful, effective approach to changing unhealthy behaviors. Schemas, called life traps in this book, are the unconscious patterns developed in childhood and carried into adulthood that drive you toward destructive relationships and hold you captive, even when you know better. As adults, we tend to be drawn to people who trigger our particular unconscious patterns or life traps because they feel familiar to us. Women who are attracted to narcissistic men tend to have inherited the specific life traps of abandonment, mistrust/abuse, emotional deprivation, defectiveness/shame, subjugation, self-sacrifice, and unrelenting standards. With this book, you will learn to identify your particular life traps and break your pattern of repeatedly getting involved with narcissistic men. I strongly suggest that you listen to this book straight through rather than skip around. I designed it so that the information and skills offered build on each other. The book is also meant to be interactive, so try not to be a passive listener. If you are, you will miss a lot. Making lasting changes in your behavior requires practice and commitment. If you just listen to the book without participating, you will not get the full benefit, which is for you to stop repeating narcissistic relationships. No More Narcissists begins with an overview of why you have been attracted to narcissists by explaining about schema theory and unmet childhood needs that followed you into adulthood, Chapter 1. It explains narcissism and narcissistic relationships, Chapter 2. Then you will identify your life traps and learn how to change them using basic building blocks of change, Chapters 3 to 6. To help heal your wounds from childhood and destructive relationships, you will learn the importance of self-care, Chapter 7. And lastly, you will put this all together as you learn how to date successfully. Chapter 8. Each chapter includes some common elements. Throughout the book, you'll hear composite stories based on women I have worked with. Each chapter provides a preview of essential elements presented in the chapter, along with a sprinkling of targeted exercises and techniques. Occasionally, I will ask you to check in with how you are feeling and ask you to reflect on what you just heard. Increasing your awareness is the first step to changing your behavior. Developing the habit of reflecting on your thoughts and feelings will also serve you well when you date a new man. I call this your looking glass, just like the mirror often used in fairy tales to seek out truth. You will get the most out of this book if you keep a journal to record your journey as you work your way through it. I recommend a 3-ring binder or something similar so you can flip back and see your progress. I want you to know that you don't have to give up on your happy ending. You no longer have to be trapped by your unmet childhood needs. Through the step-by-step process I present here, you will identify your life traps, learn the influence they have had on your choice of men, and develop the skills necessary to change, so that not only will you never experience another destructive relationship, but you will also increase your chance of finding the loving partner and relationship you desperately desire. By the time you have finished with No More Narcissists, you will realize that being attracted to narcissistic men has never been your fault. The way you have come to view yourself and the world is the result of things that happened to you in your childhood, things that were beyond your control. This is what has trapped you into repeating unhealthy relationships. You can change once you understand that you have more control than you realize, not over others, but over your own responses. In essence, you will learn to become your own fairy godmother, more on this in chapters 1 and 7, and create your own happily ever after with a healthy Prince Charming. It doesn't happen overnight, but if you are committed to the process and have patience and courage to follow the steps offered in this book, you are much more likely to find love that is true and lasting. Chapter 1. Prince Charming or Another Frog. Shortly after she completed medical school, Jessica met Todd. Brilliant, sexy, and successful, Todd swept Jessica off her feet. She was attracted to him immediately, and during their first few weeks together, his lavish compliments and loving attention made her feel special and secure. He often told her, "I just can't get enough of you." Best of all, her mom loved Todd. Gaining her mother's approval was rare, not only when it came to boyfriends, but also in every aspect of Jessica's life, so Todd appeared to be the perfect partner. As a single woman just starting out as a first-year medical doctor, she was finally making a decent income. But her father had lost his job, and Jessica felt obligated to help support her parents. This cut into her own financial goals of buying her first condo. If she married Todd, there would be 2 incomes, and she would be able to take care of her parents' needs as well as her own. But after the glow of their initial time together, Jessica and Todd's fairy tale relationship turned dark. Todd began making snide remarks about Jessica's habits, flaws, and personality. These soon escalated into verbal abuse. Todd lashed out, telling her she was fat and boring. If she didn't agree with him about something, he became angry, yelling and intimidating her. What's worse, he never took responsibility for his actions, shrugging off any hurt he had inflicted. If he was caught in a lie or proven wrong about something, he played the victim. His demeanor took on an icy coldness, unlike his initial charming persona. When Jessica told him of her successes at work, he offered no support or congratulations. It seemed he simply couldn't be happy for her or anyone else's success. When they were out with friends, he monopolized conversations and cut her and others off. It was all about him. All about Todd. At first, Jessica was shocked. She couldn't believe that her affectionate Prince Charming, the guy who'd initially rushed her into meeting his family and professed to be family-oriented, could turn into such a nasty adversary. maybe it was her. Maybe there was some truth to his criticism and accusations. Not wanting to face the truth that their relationship was not the one she hoped it would be, she tried to either ignore or rationalize Todd's malicious attacks, but when she could no longer hide from the truth, she became confused and frightened. How had Todd changed so drastically from the guy she'd originally fallen for? Was this just a bad spell? She worried that losing Todd meant that again she'd be alone and unhappy, struggling with the burden of financially caring for her parents. She fantasized that Todd would treat her better after they were married, and that perhaps it was just a fear of commitment that caused him to act out. So she stuck it out. When Todd asked her to marry him a couple of years later, Jessica was hopeful and also relieved that being married would help with her financial stress. But after 3 miserable years of desperately trying to hang on to her marriage, she ended the relationship. Jessica was heartbroken. She was sure it was her fault and could just feel her mother's tacit agreement. Within a year, Jessica met Ethan. She was well aware that his stellar attributes easily measured up to Jessica's mother's standards: successful, smart, rich. But after a few weeks of romantic dinners and blissful sex, Ethan's disapproving nature emerged. "Why do you wear clothes that are so unflattering? And your hairstyle is so unhip. You should go to a better salon." Ethan got more specific in his demands. Jessica should dress sexier and trendier, wear shorter, tighter skirts and higher heels. Jessica's appearance wasn't the only thing that needed a makeover. Ethan also wanted her to focus on certain topics when they were out with his friends. As for her friends, they weren't interesting or sophisticated enough for him. And he didn't like her family either. In other words, in almost every department, except for sex, Jessica didn't fulfill Ethan's requirements for an acceptable girlfriend. Never mind that she was kind, thoughtful, and highly educated, or that she had been invited to join the staff and faculty at the city's premier hospital. Jessica didn't fit Ethan's exacting criteria. Despite the red flags, Jessica was desperate to hold on to Ethan. And in spite of all of his criticisms, she was thrilled beyond belief when he planned a trip to Venice for them and emailed her telling her about the 3+ carat diamond engagement ring he was buying for her. Needless to say, Jessica was floored when later that week Ethan broke up with her via a text. His text informed Jessica that he was putting her things in a brown paper bag and would be leaving them with the doorman of her apartment building. Jessica was in total shock. She had no idea anything had been wrong. Ethan's change of heart seemed to have come out of the blue. Her self-confidence was shattered. Todd and Ethan were just 2 of the narcissistic partners Jessica was involved with when she was in her 20s. There were others. Was there something about Jessica that was a magnet for narcissistic guys? Or was there something about them that drew her in? It wasn't until Jessica explored her family's psychological dynamic and its influence on her relationships with men that she came to understand why she was habitually drawn to men who were narcissists and why they were attracted to her. Jessica's story reflects her wish for a fairy tale romance where her Prince Charming would sweep her off her feet and fix all her problems. She was blindsided by her unmet needs and desires and could not see the real man behind the fairy tale she wanted to believe in. Her forever after ended the only way it could because the spell of her unmet needs and desires was cast long ago when she was still a child. It set up a pattern of being attracted to narcissistic men and only seeing what she wanted to see, a pattern Jessica was now trapped in repeating. Jessica's story illustrates how dangerous it can be to be blind to the patterns that trap us into repeating unhealthy, destructive relationships and leave us vulnerable to the dark side of a supposed Prince Charming. The result can be a broken heart again and again and again. We've all been there. Our struggle to find the happily ever after. Does Jessica's struggle to find a happily ever after relationship sound familiar? Have you been through the aftermath of yet another destructive relationship? Have you had those same feelings or thoughts as Jessica? I've heard this same story many times in the privacy of my office. Each Jessica has tried in earnest many times to find the love of her life, only to discover herself in yet another failed relationship and with the feeling of being ready to give up. It must be her that doesn't work. After all, she is the common denominator in all these failed relationships. The sense of shame associated with this type of repeated loss becomes unbearable. You may ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Or, feeling hopeless and defeated, you may wonder, why should I put myself through this again? Eventually, you think, perhaps the dream of a loving partner or husband and a family has been just that, a dream, at least for me. I want you to know that there is hope and help for you to change this pattern of failed relationships. Really. I know you're thinking, yeah, right, this won't really work. Actually, it will work. I didn't write just another self-help book that tells you about the problem but doesn't offer real solutions or the tools and skills to help you change. I'm not offering a quick fix, but I am offering you the chance for a healthy relationship, one you can build a future on. You just need to suspend judgment and try. As you listen, you will come to understand how experiences from your childhood and adolescence have trapped you into repeating unhealthy patterns of behavior. Using the skill-building tools offered here can set you free from repeating unhealthy narcissistic relationships. Essential elements. In this chapter, we'll explore the reasons why narcissistic partners can initially seem so appealing and why it can be so hard for those involved with them to break away or choose someone different the next time around or miss the warning signs early on. You will be introduced to schema theory, which explains how a child's unmet emotional needs lead to the development of core beliefs that underlie life traps, unhealthy life patterns, such as repeatedly engaging in relationships with narcissists. You will learn about the core beliefs that underlie the 7 life traps most closely associated with women who are attracted to narcissistic partners, a combination of which may influence your dating choices. Examples will illustrate these various concepts. Sections called Your Looking Glass give you the opportunity to reflect on your childhood experiences, identify your core beliefs, and understand how they trapped you into repeating narcissistic relationships. Why are we blind to the warning signs of narcissistic men? To understand why we find narcissistic partners so appealing, we need to understand the negative psychological patterns we develop in childhood that tend to endure throughout our life unless we consciously change them. Schema theory was developed and researched by prominent psychologist Jeffrey Young. In his original book on schema theory, Reinventing Your Life, he identified what he called life traps, self-destructive patterns of behavior which are formed as the result of negative experiences in childhood that happened to you. We carry these life traps with us into adulthood, where we continue to reconstruct similar situations because they feel familiar to us, even if they are damaging. Women with specific life traps are doomed to repeat narcissistic relationships unless they become aware of their life traps and their underlying core beliefs and learn how to change them. Core beliefs. Core beliefs are the beliefs which originated in childhood that we hold about ourselves and the world around us. They color our perception of people and situations and influence how we feel and respond. For example, if I grow up in a family in which I am constantly criticized and my parents never tell me they love me, I will come to believe that I am unworthy of love. Believing I am unworthy of love becomes a core belief about myself, and I carry this belief from childhood into adulthood. It then affects all my relationships, especially intimate relationships, and influences my dating choices because I am vulnerable and desperate for affection, never having received it in childhood. As an adult, I may avoid intimate relationships altogether because I believe I am unworthy of love, or I may become attracted to the first man who shows me any attention. I will easily mistake attention for affection, which can be disastrous if he is not sincere. If he turns out to be a narcissist, the relationship is doomed. It will end, and I will interpret it as my fault since I believe I am unworthy of love, not knowing that it is.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?